So the first step to creating your USA map design, like with anything, you're going to start off by clicking the blue Create New Design button. So that's going to take you to the basic shapes. So when we start on TinkerCAD, you have the basic shapes. We need to change that. And so we're going to click this little arrow that pops down. And basically, instead of these things here, we want to see some other stuff. So you're going to go and you're going to go down to Shape Generators and go to All. Okay. So these are going to pop up. And the one that we're going to be using for this assignment repeatedly is US states. All right, so we're going to start out by grabbing this one that looks like the state of New York and drag it out up to this upper left corner of the grid. Now right up there, you can see it, is the orthographic and perspective button. Let's press those a couple times and go back to the original, which is the perspective button. Now look, you can see I put two cubes here, and I put a little tiny gap in between them, right? The problem is that if we go to a top view, you can't even really, that gap, you can't really see it very well. It doesn't stand out, and it gives us a trick to make us think, it might trick our eyes to think that those two things are next to each other, when in fact there's actually a little gap there. So watch what happens when we press this orthographic, it switches to a more flat view, and you can really see that there's a gap there. That's important for this assignment. So yours is going to start out with this button in the perspective mode. I want you to click it and switch to orthographic. It's very important for this assignment. Now we can see between those very easily. So orthographic view is the first thing. If you don't do that, this assignment is going to be very difficult to see and to understand if they're truly together. Because in this one, it's very important that we get the shapes exactly lined up. That's the whole point of this assignment, is to learn how to do that. So now we're back, and if you haven't already done it like I did earlier, we're going to switch to orthographic and then go to a top view. We're going to leave the camera there from almost this whole assignment. Okay, so just a second, and we are going to start off by going and pulling up a map of the United States. Let's go to Google and do that. So I've gone to google.com and I've typed in USA map. And we can put states after it, that might help. Okay, so, and then you can go to the images section and just pull up something that's going to give you kind of an idea of how the states fit together. Here's a pretty good one. So there we go. This will give me a good start, and I'll just kind of use this map and leave it in the background. See, I have that here on another tab, and I can switch back and forth. If you have an extra monitor, you can set it on the side monitor or whatever. You might go side by side, but that's kind of a little cramped to work with. Okay, so we're going to start out up in the corner here, which is Washington, which is where we live. So we're going to start in this corner and kind of work our way to where it gets a little bit more complex on the East Coast. All right, so what we need to do first, obviously, if we have New York, we're not in the Pacific Northwest. We need to start out, click the shape. Remember, for this one, if you accidentally, instead of dragging the shape, you accidentally grab one of these and squish it, don't try to manually bring it back. Don't do that. It will ruin this assignment. Every shape is exactly the right size when you put it out for this assignment. That's important. So if you do accidentally end up screwing up, you can either undo it until it goes back to exactly the right place, or exactly the right size, or just delete it. It's not very hard to go back to Shape Generators All and just drag out a new one, okay? But remember, if you mess up, another thing, never rotate anything in this assignment. If you spin it around even a tiny bit, they will not fit together. And again, this is about accuracy, so I'm going to undo that. I'm not going to try to eyeball it to get it back to where it goes, okay? All right, now we have those out of the way. Those are very important. If you ever squish something and you try to fix it, it will not fit together. You have to fix it using the undo or just start from scratch. Very important. Okay, so I got my view correct. I got my shape out there. Now what we do is we know that this is not, it's not supposed to be New York. It's supposed to be Washington. So you just go over to this menu and you scroll down and you click on New York and you change it until you get down to Washington. Cool, now I've got Washington State. Excellent. Now look, I don't want to, you know how we're going to be moving stuff around? I don't want this to move ever. So I'm going to teach you a trick in this program right now. We're going to use the lock button. So click on Washington State. Again, don't click the little dots. If you do that, you're going to screw up your whole assignment. Click the actual shape. And if you need to, you can zoom in to get closer. And look, you can also drag it over, or you can click the shape and click this button to zoom right on top of it. If you're wondering how I'm dragging it around like this, I'm using the middle mouse button on my mouse, okay? That's how I'm doing it. You can also click on the thing you want. If you don't have that, you can always zoom out, click on the thing you want to zoom to, and then click this button here, and it will fit right to that. And then you can do it around. Now, look, I have Washington. I don't want it to move, so I'm going to lock it. See the lock button right here? Lock editing. Good. Done. Now we go to the next state. Let's look at what that would be. Let's put in the next one here. I'm going to line up with Oregon. You've probably been to Oregon. If you've ever been down and driven along the Columbia River and gone to Portland, you've been to Oregon. So you just grab another U.S. state, put it kind of down there underneath where it's going to go. Don't drag it. Don't spin it. Don't do that. It's very important. Get yourself an orthographic top view. And then you're going to go here and you're going to change this one to Oregon this time. Pretty simple, right? And the good news is that Washington you can't screw up. Now, if you want to move Washington, see how it has that line around it? You'll have to unlock it, but we want it locked. That's good. Now, here's where we run into an issue. I'm going to change the color of Oregon. So click on Solid and change it to some other color. I don't care as long as it's not the same color as Washington. Each one that touches should not be the same color. So I'm going to drag it, and you can see how it kind of lines up. But look, hey, listen, this is what the whole assignment's about. If you don't do this, you're not doing the assignment the way I want you to. And I won't accept it. The idea is that you zoom in, and you see there's a gap there. It's not fit perfectly. Now, let's use the arrow keys. And arrow keys can nudge it. See these keys right here on the keyboard? These guys? Those can nudge it little perfect bits at a time so you can get it more accurate than your mouse. But here's the problem. Look, let's move it up with the arrow key. Listen, too much. Let's move it down, way too much. Left, not right. So there's no option, left, right, up, down. There's no way to get it right. Look at this, it's too much. It's never lining up correct. The reason is down here in the corner, down over there, way on the side, see that? You have the snap grid. Every time we're moving it 1.01 millimeter. And you can see, look guys, that's just, whoops, I don't know what that is. That's too much. 1 millimeter is just too much. We need to get it tinier, a tinier movement. So this is the big thing on the assignment. If you don't do this, don't bother turning it in. You'll get a 0. So you got to make sure you do this because the whole point is to teach you how to use this snap grid. Click down here and you're going to change that to something more accurate. Some people like off, some people like 0.1. I use 0.1. It's usually close enough for what we need to do. Now I can move it little tiny bits once I change it to 0.1. And then I go up, and that's good enough. Is it perfect? Perfect. Good enough for us. So I'm going to click and lock Oregon into place. Okay, let's do another one of those. We have Idaho is to the east of the Washington state. So let's go here, grab New York. We're going to switch it to Idaho and make sure we don't stretch it or rotate it at all. It just makes our job harder. That's not a part of this assignment. Stretching and rotating, resizing, these are already the correct size. Okay, there's Idaho on my list. Make it some other color, doesn't matter which one. It's up to you. And now I'm going to get it close with my mouse. See, I grab it with the mouse, and again, I don't grab these dots because that'll squish it. Undo. I grab it I make sure I zoom in so I can grab it by this part. I put it about where it's needed. Then I zoom in, click to center it on the shape and zoom in. And you can see right along here, it's off a little bit. And now we use, again, the arrow keys to nudge it. Just give it a little tap right where it needs to be. There it is. And I went down a little bit. It's not exactly, oh, there. That's pretty darn good. It's a little off, but if we zoom out, I mean, that's pretty good. And we're going to lock it so that when we get to the other ones like Montana, we don't mess up our project and our progress, okay? So we're going to take a look at that, and those are all locked into place. Outstanding. This is great so far. Okay, now the next part of this that I want you guys to do for each state, we're going to put labels on them using the text tool. Let me show you how to do that. Okay, now to get the text tool, we're going to go and we have to go back to basic shapes and text. If you want to, you can just drag this out there and duplicate it every time you need it. That's not a bad idea. It's obviously way too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold down the Shift button, grab a corner. This one, we actually want it to be, we don't want to move it here. We want to actually shrink it down. So actually, I'm going to move it over Washington here, and I'm going to hold down Shift so it doesn't get squished. I won't accept text that's squished and stretched like this. I really do need you to hold down the Shift button. Hold down Shift, grab the corner, and just make it smaller until it looks like it's a good text size for Washington. Okay? I'm going to move it right over here, and I'm going to change the text over here in the box. Delete that, backspace, Washington. And I'm going to put that on there. Now, it's not sticking up, is it? That's not good, and it's still a little too big. So I'm going to squish it down, stretch it with the top one, stretch it up, and now I have a label for the state of Washington. And it's okay if it hangs off the side a little bit. I'm going to make it a different color than the state, though, just so it pops out a little bit. Whoops, no. That's the same one as Oregon. I don't want that. Okay, there we go. And then I can do the same thing. What I would do is before you do this, what I would do, so you don't have to stretch it and shrink it again, is go up here and click the duplicate. Okay? Now, I just made a copy or a duplicate. Tell me, where is that? It's actually hiding where the old Washington used to be. So I'm going to press the arrow button, and I'm moving it down. And now I'm a big liar because this is not Washington that I'm on. This is Oregon. So I need to make sure, lock the Washington one, that's in the right place. And the one for Oregon, I'm just simply going to change the text on it. Oregon. Okay, cool. Hey, there's no reason to misspell anything. You can always look it up right here. It's right here. It's spelled for you. Okay? And then finally, we can duplicate that one, drag the duplicate over, click on it, and change the text to Idaho. Right? Whoops. Screwed that up. Just a second. Hold on. Okay, sorry, got it going again. So we have Idaho. I'm going to press Enter. And you can change the font if you want. I'm not going to mess with that, though. So I'm going to lock the Oregon label and the Idaho label. All right, guys, now look, here's my assignment. And in the last few minutes, and I'm teaching you, this goes really quickly, okay? But we can see there's no gaps between my states, and there's no overlap. I need to see evidence that you changed when you do the assignment. You're going to finish this assignment for the 50 states of our nation. Now look, there's some very, very small states on the East Coast, isn't there? See these ones here? Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, stuff like that. Okay, for those ones, what we're going to do, let me show you what I would do for something like Vermont, let's say. So we're going to look up here at this corner of the map. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. I built that. And it's just there's not enough room. So if we go over here back to Idaho, unlock it, duplicate it, and we move this label all the way over here, you can see that for little poor New Hampshire, that's just too big to fit on there, isn't it? So if we look at this, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to move it out of the way. Type up here. Whoops. You notice you have to actually backspace. You can't like type over it. So for New Hampshire, right, we're going to put here, and then we'll just put a box, make it super thin, like one line thick, squish it way down. So it's just like basically like a line. It looks like a line. And then you can just label it like that. So we can spin our line and make the line pointing towards New Hampshire. And top view, and then that's how you can do it. So you can label it and show like, hey, this one here is New Hampshire. And you can do that with the other ones too. Or you can abbreviate them too. That's fine also. Alrighty, guys. So remember, here's what's important about this assignment. Let's review. First thing that is very important, you cannot see if there's a gap or not if you don't have orthographic view switched on. So switch to orthographic view. The cube should look like this. Second, we need to get a top view straight down so we can see if there's any of those little tiny gaps. Third, we have to find our shapes by going to Shape Generators All to find the shapes that are the states. Another thing to remember that we talked about is that sometimes moving it even a millimeter is fine, but for this assignment, 1 millimeter is way too much. It leaves overlaps and gaps and it looks nasty. The whole point of this assignment is to use the snap grid, which is over there on the bottom. You can see I'm playing with it right now, to change it to either 0.1 or off, and then you can move your shapes around very, very easily and efficiently and get them exactly where you want it. Now I'm going to delete this stuff. It's not really connected to my map yet. So what you're going to do is to keep building out until you have 48 continental U.S. states. Look, Alaska and Hawaii are not connected to the continental U.S. The whole point of this assignment is for you to get things connected exactly and move them precisely to match up with other shapes. Since Alaska and Hawaii aren't on there, you can add them to yours on the side if you want and label them, but I'm not going to grade on that. What I'm grading you on is 48, the other 48 states, put together and assembled perfectly and labeled. That is your assignment for this week. In the next video, I will, and on Thursday, I'll publish another video that will show you how to turn it in, depending on whether you're watching this at school or you're working over the internet and turning it in on Canvas. So that's our USA map assignment. Thanks, everybody, and good luck.